Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Getting Rooted, the podcast that's all about the journey of being rooted, reclaiming one's own truth, and embracing destiny. I'm Janine Hansel from Plug, your host, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and trauma specialist in the state of Maryland. I'm also the founder and clinical director of Rooted Holistic Therapeutic Services. The content of this podcast is not counseling advice nor a substitute for individual therapy. The content is for information purposes only, and the information provided is not intended to be used as a replacement for medical and mental health advice. Please seek and follow the advice of your licensed mental health professional. In this podcast episode, Embracing Change, Thriving Amidst Uncertainty, we'll delve into the complexity of navigating life's ever-evolving landscape. We'll focus on the profound journey of embracing change while caring for a family member, grappling with a life-altering condition such as Parkinson's disease. As a caregiver, we confront a multitude of challenges, both emotionally and practically. Join us as we explore strategies for maintaining mental well-being while navigating the complexities of being a caretaker in the face of uncertainty. I have a guest with me today, Dr. George Ackman, who is the founder of Together for Sharon organization, whose purpose is keeping his mother, Sharon Riff Ackerson's memory alive and to share the message of Parkinson's awareness and a hope for a cure. So stay tuned, listen up, and hopefully you get something out of today's episode. Hi, Dr. George. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for your time and your audience. It means the world to me to have an opportunity to not just share my mother's memory, but also share our journey through Parkinson's awareness and hope for a cure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so glad that we were able to connect to have this conversation um, because Parkinson's disease is something that is very prevalent in my life at this moment. And I feel like it's necessary to talk about it and talk about the things that a lot of people are not really aware of or really understand the complexity of this thing called caregiving and mental health and, just, taking care of someone with an uncertain disease such as Parkinson's. So before we get into it, can you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get into our discussion.
Sure, I go by Sharon's son George because I'm on a journey of advocacy. Unfortunately, our, in a way, story ended when my mother passed. She had Parkinson's for 15 years, but the last 4 years were the toughest. And she passed on 1/1/2020. She was only the young age of 69. So even today, 4 years later, I'm still kind of in shock and still grieving. This helps me to also cope with loss. So I hope that people out there, the main thing we learn from today is that they're never alone. It's people like me out there fighting for them. Parkinson's disease, unfortunately, is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world. There's about 1 million people in the US have it and 10 million throughout the world. And as you said, unfortunately, it's touching your family. But now I'm getting feedback from people, and they're saying that they didn't even realize their neighbor had it, or the cousin just got it, or this person, and that's really frightening because that's not the way I want them to be aware. I want them to gain awareness through maybe our voice or my voice, but not because they have now gotten Parkinson's. And finally, my goal is really to reach individuals who don't have Parkinson's and also those who are not in the Parkinson's community, because I feel that we're all family in this fight. And the only way we're going to get closer to a cure is if we all voice our opinions and also share our stories and journeys with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think for me, recognizing this journey, and for those that don't know, my listeners that don't know, my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in April of 2022. No, 2023. Um, no, I'm incorrect. My years are going by quickly. It was actually April
Um,
2022. I was a few months pregnant, and found out that my dad was also diagnosed with Parkinson's, and it was kind of like, "What?" Like, took
yeah.
me by surprise, like, that was not what I was expecting for the neurologist to say, um, but here we are. And it has taken my family by surprise because of the not being prepared. My dad had, he has other neurological issues, seizure disorder, things of that nature, and that was a shock when he started having seizures. But um recognizing that this fight, there's so many people that don't know about Parkinson's. And I guess before we even start talking about all of this, like, what is Parkinson's disease? Like, how does it impact an individual? You said it's the fastest growing neurodivergent, not neurodegenerative.
Degenerative. Yeah.
I can never say that word, but there you go. The most fast,
Unfortunately,
it's impacting a lot.
yeah, I never
Yeah.
thought I'd be saying that word either until I got into caregiving and things, but I was never really aware either. So it's something unfortunately I was thrown into. I always say you can't really take a course on being a caregiver, especially if it's your loved one. So I was kind of just tossed right into it. Had to put on almost like the boxing gloves and just say I'm gonna do this because my mother sacrificed a lot of her life growing up so that I could be the man I am today. She was a school teacher. She had a master's degree in, I believe, psychology, and she kind of gave it all up to take care of me and my brother. So I didn't say I enjoyed the challenge, but I was definitely up for it. Unfortunately, I didn't know what I was about to endure. This is a disease that really kind of, at least again, everyone's different. So every person who has Parkinson's is treated completely different. That's why it's tough to find a cure. But with my journey and my mother's, she was a very independent person, lived alone. She always loved to walk, but so she had it for 15 years. I wasn't involved much because she didn't want to burden us, or she was able to still live a life with her friends and independent. The last 4 years, she went in the fourth that year. She went to a university, kind of like a study, hoping to get help, but we don't know if they changed her medicines too drastically. And that night, she ended up in the emergency room, and I rushed her there, and a lot of bad things from that time down on to the last day just began. And she went from being someone who walked a lot to someone in now a cane for 2 years and a walker, then a wheelchair, and then bedbound. But some of the signs of Parkinson's are all different. She didn't have external tremors like someone like Mr. Michael J. Fox might have. She had internal, but she also had something called dystonia, dyskinesia, and one of them, dystonia, is with the curling of the toes. It's also, she lost a lot of weight. She had major problems with her stomach. But Parkinson's usually affects like the gait, the ability for her left arm to move, and then it
Mhm.
also, just really, the problem is it's uncontrollable. So it'll take your mind and your physical being and really do what it wants with it. Now we have research shows if you do 45 minutes a day of exercise, it possibly can slow the progression. But again, at my mother's point, it was kind of too late, we think, but everything's still unknown, which is a big problem.
Yeah, it is, and you hit the nail on the head because everyone is different. Because your mom had 15 years to kind of navigate through this and have a semblance of a normal life for the first part of that. With my dad, it was quick. Like at this point, 2 years later, you almost in April, it's March. And he is bedridden. So it's kind of it's hard. It's really hard
Yeah.
to know, right? Think even the doctor said, "We're gonna try this and see what happens." And it feels like, again, that uncertainty of like, what is the prognosis? Like, what is the end result of all of this? Are we just trying things? We can kind of, closing our eyes and see what sticks. And for a caregiver, that's uncomfortable, and it
Yeah,
definitely impacts health. Mhm.
that's the tough part. What you're saying is because you go to the doctor. We went to about 15, I think, or 7 to 15, and I didn't want them to just give a quick answer, but I wanted them to tell us how she'll be okay. They just kept
Mhm.
saying you don't die from Parkinson's, you can die with it. So in my brain, that meant she'll live till 85 or more. But like you said, and you're going through, that's not always true in every case. The other problem is there are medications. Not to slow the progression down, but to control, the symptoms like the tremors. But if you have, I hired like a staff of people just to make sure she didn't fall, and they were supposed to keep a journal, and they did. But who knows if they were doing the right amount of doses, the right medicine. So that to this day, And even if I was the one doing it, I'm not a medical doctor or a nurse, so I don't even know if I could have handled it. When she passed or afterwards, we cleaned out her home, which was horrifying. That I found like 5 huge garbage bags of medicines, like just tons and tons. It's like I don't know how any of that could help the human body. So again, I have a PhD in mine's in criminal justice. I'm a police officer, reserve, and attorney. So again, I don't give medical advice. I recommend everybody go see your movement specialist for Parkinson, but we exhausted the whole medical industry and didn't really find any answers, in my opinion. I even had to pull one doctor in a room one day and say, is my mother gonna, live? Because we didn't know what was going on. She was just getting worse, and he really couldn't say either way. So I was like kind of wondering why I was even going there. But every
Mhm.
door we turned to and every roadblock in our way, we just tried to push through them. But unfortunately, again, we lost our battle on 1/1/2020. And the reason I do this today is in memory of my mother, but togetherforsharon.com was just created to make sure that people know whether they're diagnosed or caregivers that they're never alone, because I felt very alone. There were resources, but I didn't know where they were. So I put them all out there for free. And a year ago, I discovered it's not just about me and my mother anymore. It's about everybody, and we're a family in this fight. I interviewed about 600 people around the world from England, France, Spain, Africa. I mean, you name it, Australia, Iceland, Nova Scotia. I didn't even, some of them I didn't even, couldn't dream that people are suffering from Parkinson's in these countries, but they are. Even in Africa, one story of a gentleman I became friendly with told me that he had his mother taken away because they think in Africa that Parkinson's is witchcraft, and they put her somewhere far away and wouldn't allow him to see her. But he escaped one night and went to visit her, and she was very scared. These are the kind of misconceptions, or some, like you might know, they thought of Parkinson's was an elderly man disease, which is not true either. So the
Mhm.
real, this talk today, I consider you again family and not just a friend, because you and your audience are really helping move the conversation forward. And the only way I think, again, we'll be closer to a cure is if we continually discuss this, advocate, and really just have a discussion on even tougher topics that need to be out there in order for us to find a cure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important because if you don't know, if you don't know, then you're it's ignorance, right? And because you want to be ignorant, you just don't know. Like I said, me and my family, my grandmother had dementia, Alzheimer's, and we understood that. Like we could got through that. It was tough, but that made more sense. She's getting older, like these type of things. And I think recognizing and it's not only Parkinson's, there's a lot of diseases out there that are shocking, right? They just come out of nowhere, it feels like, and you just become a caregiver overnight, right? One day you're free as a bird, the next day you're like having to take care of your parents or your loved ones in some form. So I'm wondering for you, how did it impact your mental health? You talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but kind of tell us how did it impact your mental health and what resources were you able to tap into to assist you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone could have handled it any better or even any much differently. I just had, I'm a lawyer. I take a list of things. I write down different paths to take, and when I can't complete them, I try and find another. We tried everything from therapists to, I mean, you name it, from different doctors to this to that. We even tried in Florida. You can have licensed medical marijuana. That was a funny story because I'm a cop, so I was scared to even do that, but I wanted her to not feel the pain, and that didn't work. We even took her to pain management for like injections for her back because she had pain in the back, and that's for my fibromyalgia, and that didn't work. So I just kept trying to find ways, but I felt like I was hitting a dead end every day, and that was very draining, saddening, frustrating. I got angry, upset, sad, grief. I mean, you name it. And holding my mother's hand while she asked me, "Am I going to be here to see her grandkids grow up and be at their wedding?" was very tough. So you're supposed to really take care of yourself. I don't think I did a great job of that, but luckily I have my wife who is very supportive. She helped with the kids. So I would say even my own family suffered a little. So I wasn't around for my 3 children. I also love basketball and sports, and I just didn't have time. So if I do look back, I would say to spend more time first on yourself before you can help others. But honestly, I would have went back and done the same thing because I didn't have the time. We didn't know when she was going to pass, if she was going to. It was just the whole thing was kind of, I think, in one word, summed up chaos. And I don't think it could be changed even if we went through it, God forbid, today again, just because there's not much, again, besides a cure out there. I did reach out to some organizations, but big ones weren't really. I'm in South Florida, which you would think the elderly population is pretty big in Parkinson's community. But we don't really have much here. They do have a few groups like the Parkinson's Foundation, and they have the American Parkinson's Disease Association and Michael J. Fox Foundation. But I called them all, and only the American Parkinson's Disease Association did show up. But they would offer great programs. However, my mother was kind of too sick for that, so it didn't really wasn't for us. But we've donated about like $16,000 to those three organizations in memory of my mother to help others. I don't want anyone to have to go through this, but again, I was on my own, and then even support groups would have been nice, but at the time I didn't know where to find one. I would have. Now I'm kind of in a weird world because I don't have Parkinson's, and I'm not any longer someone caring for someone alive with Parkinson's. So even now I'm still grieving, and there's nothing. So we started with a group called PSP Awareness. They're in Canada, but we started once a month on I believe a Tuesday, 4 o'clock. We offer a completely free, confidential support group online on Zoom. And if you want to sign up, anyone, if you go to togetherforsharon.com and click about us, and you'll see support group. That's pretty amazing. We just started it, so it's very small. We don't want it to get too big because you can't have a good support group. But that's something I would like even today, just to be able to talk to people. And it's for anyone who lost a loved one due to any disease. So it's not specifically just for Parkinson's, but I still have never had that opportunity to share stories or my own with people who had loss due to a disease.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is important to have a support group. I'm part of a group on Facebook, caregivers of Parkinson's disease, and I find that group to be helpful, especially in the beginning stages where I didn't know what was going on, or is this normal? Is this Parkinson's behavior? Is this, he also has dementia. So is this dementia be like demented be like what is happening? And as a therapist, it made me feel ill prepared. Like I was like, well, how do I support my mom? And like I told you, I was just pregnant, and so trying to I'm bringing a life into this world and seeing my dad struggling and coming to a lot. He has seizures, so it was increasing those things. His gait was off. It was a lot going on at the same time, and I would have loved to have a group of people to talk to. I live here in Maryland, Western Maryland, and they have support group for let me take that back. They do have support group for the people with Parkinson's, and they said that the caregivers can come, but I feel like there wasn't a space just for the caregivers, and so being around other people, the people with Parkinson's, great, but I would like to talk about like my struggles as dealing with a person with Parkinson's, the sleepless nights, the uncertainty, if they're going to fall out the bed, all the things they're trying to get to the back, like all the things that you don't think about. you know, Being able to talk to someone about that. I would have loved that. But I utilized Facebook, the group, and they were helpful. And, I'm like, is
Yeah,
this normal? Talk to the doctor about this. Should I, those kind of things. But has been a helpful source for me in the process. But I love like us having a, virtual group. Sounds,
yeah. I was on that Facebook. I don't know if it was the same one, but I didn't feel comfortable because, again, if you say something, you're worried someone offended
mm,
or doesn't want to hear the truth. So I couldn't really post a lot. I even had one group once, which I stopped really with the groups that said, my mother didn't pass and I'm not real. And I don't even know where that kind of stuff comes from. But I think part of the problem is even when I'm on the podcast, I always tell everyone my goal is to find a cure. We don't accept money. We don't accept anything except that, they know they're never alone. But it's
mhm.
odd in 2024. Sadly, if you say you want to just support people and you don't want any money, it's almost like they're in shock. So even when we do walks, a lot of time we'll have like walks and we'll pass out these bands. They just say Together for Sharon in memory of my mother for Parkinson. So, and we're in the middle of all these pharmaceutical companies. So, they're selling things. So they walk by us and they're tentative to come up. But then when they realize who I am, what we're doing, they hug me and some cry and some kiss us. And that's why we do it. But it's sad that again, in 2024, you have to struggle to show that there's no background or intent. I'm not selling anything. Our website to read the 600 interviews is free. my time was, volunteer to do that. And then even the people who I interviewed, I offered it all free. So there's no catch, or, they're going to say, wait, but wait, there's more. Like, it's not anything like that. But, I'm not a big supporter. I love Facebook and all of those social media. We're on them, but the groups have always been an interesting thing because, I'm a lawyer. I believe in the First Amendment, and whoever's the moderator of the group bans like half the stuff you want to say, and that's why I never really was for them. But I definitely, encourage anything that works for you or anybody.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, like, some things work for people and some things don't, but it's better to try something rather than feeling alone in this journey. And I think just finding a community of people that is going through the same thing, whether they're wives or daughters or sons or, whatever, neighbors or, whatever it is, recognizing like you're not in this little fishbowl by yourself. There's other people in this fishbowl trying to survive and thrive in the space that was given to them. And so for you, it sounds like you're finding meaning and purpose in the passing of your mom. You're trying to help other people. So tell me when that shift happened for you, when you realized like I need to do I have a story and I need to get that story out. Like what happened that caused you to make that shift?
Yeah, my mother meant the world to me. She was my best friend, and I didn't want her to be forgotten. If she had passed, at 85 or 80 at regular causes, then maybe I wouldn't have done anything. But I feel like Parkinson's obviously doesn't define people, but it took, 15 plus years of her life. I still think she should have had another 15. So she really lost 30 years in my kind of thinking, and I don't find that it's fair. So I just wanted to remember her. I thought maybe 3 or 4 people would see the website, and all of a sudden, even last week we checked, and over 34, I think, thousand people visited the website, which means the world to me. And even today, talking, if we could just reach one person that learns about my mother's journey and now is aware of Parkinson's disease and may even reach out. Something's happening right now. It's called the National Plan to End Parkinson's. We talked about it. It's the
Mhm,
first bill in U.S. history for people who are diagnosed with Parkinson's and caregivers and research and advocacy and awareness. And it passed the House of Representatives last December. It's going to hopefully go to the Senate this year or the next. And of course, we talked already, and everyone I already did listening to this, please reach out to your senator. Tell them you want them, not that you like them, just say you need them to support the national plan to end Parkinson's disease, because it'll help Janine and her family. It'll help everyone listening. And unfortunately, I could still get Parkinson's, and you never know. We should have laws in place to help support people. Some of the saddest stories are, if I show you quickly, this is
mhm.
I'm not selling it, but this is actually a mug that was made. It's me and my mother. And basically, you could see it's every journey matter. But somebody who has Parkinson's has a company named Steven. It's Parkin Shirts, and he makes mugs and shirts. And he can't really sometimes afford his own, medicines for Parkinson's. So I thought, why not, you help him? And if any sales for the cup or mug, we bought about 10 just ourselves, goes directly to him, and I don't take a penny. And that's a
Yeah.
new project trying to figure out is I like to have a spot on my website where it would literally be a link of people who have Parkinson's but are promoting things so I can help them pay for their medicines. It's not easy to do this, so I'm trying just to brainstorm for now, but that's like my newest thing. I did interview the 600 people. A lot of them have Parkinson's, some are foundations, and that helps because, again, people are more aware. Just ironically, I'm reading my manuscript from my first book that's done. It's actually, I can't share because I was told not to. This is the index. So it's pretty exciting. I don't have much time to read it. Hopefully that'll go out soon. And that's going to really be about, my mother's journey, the first signs, symptoms. It's going to answer a lot of the questions that we just never have time in a short time on the podcast to answer. And then I'm releasing 4 sets of the interview book. So all the interviews I've done are going to be
Mhm,
published someday in the form of books. And my future plan is I like to write a kid's book because I couldn't explain to my 3 children what the heck was happening with my mother. And then my real dream, if I can, is since I'm a researcher and my field is law enforcement and the criminal justice system. Before I got into caregiving, I was a big advocate for African American mothers who have lost their loved ones due to crime such as murder. And I work with victims because the family members also become, they're called secondary victims, and they're forgotten by the criminal justice system. And I correlate that to the Parkinson's community because, as you know, again, there's no laws helping anyone right now. Parkinson's, hopefully that'll change. But that was a new journey. But the field of law enforcement and first responders needs to have some change brought because there's nothing. I'm taught at the police academy. There's not even a sentence or a word with Parkinson's disease in it. And unless they change it in the last year, which I doubt it, I think that needs to change. So I'd like to do a book on Parkinson's and policing, and hopefully maybe sponsor a bill someday through Congress, even for that, and have all police departments come together and just even have one little class on. Because if they pull someone over at night, imagine it's us, we're in a car 4 a.m. and the driver happens to have Parkinson's and they didn't take their medicines or timing right, and the officer pulls them over and they're uncontrollably shaking. Well, the officer could think it's drugs, alcohol, who knows what. They might pull a gun because that's just the training. It's dangerous for officers. And this is an area I don't blame police. It just there's no time, and that could end very badly. Whereas if they were just a little bit aware because of what we do in our movement, maybe that'll stop that and maybe save lives.
Absolutely. I love that because I think, I was talking to someone the other day about, right, the police department, the police force is supposed to, protect and serve. And so, because if they're limited in their knowledge of things, you're going to take it at face value and not dig deeper, right? In the, because of safety, all these things, right? We take that all into consideration. But you're right, like that was a big concern even with my dad being a Black Hispanic tall big old man, like, and he was having, he was also having seizures. We took him off the road, but the trembling and like the not sometimes he wouldn't know what he was doing or where he was going. All these things could look like something else when it was something, when it was Parkinson's or dementia. In the very early stages, some days he'd be great and some days not so great. And so I think those things are really important for our community members to know, for them to be educated about these things, to be of service rather than of harm and causing more distress in the families that are trying to do their best that they can with their loved ones. So I really love that. And the partnership that you're trying to do and really get the message out there. I'm so excited.
Uh,
Um,
I also learn every day. It doesn't matter how many degrees I have. I always believe you still have a lot to learn from everyone you meet. And just talking, I'm shocked that there's no books out there that I've seen that with a son who had a mother and Parkinson's. There's not even one in the world, which is frightening. So that shows it's time to bring change. We need this awareness. Also, I was shocked when someone asked me to speak. I don't know if I told you, like for a male caregiver summit, and I was like, I know I'm a male, but I didn't even realize that it's an epidemic in the field because men don't, I guess, stand up, or a lot of time they might take care of their family, but they don't really want to talk about it. So we're breaking bounds with that world, which I didn't even know about. So there's just a lot of things, even the policing. There's not one book out there on policing and Parkinson's and all these things. I think, when you do a PhD or research like I have, you look for two types of research: one that there already is research and you're just building on it, or where there's a gap in the literature. And I'm finding a lot of gaps right now, if there's even any literature in this topic. And I think it's very important. And again, we're literally sitting here talking 2/28, 24, whenever this airs. This is
mm.
history we're making because, again, the plan spearheaded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation is just going to change the world for so many people. And I just wish people realize how urgent it is.
Yeah, and it's all about getting that ball, getting that momentum going, that people get the message, right? And that's with everything that has happened in society. One person something, and they have to get the message out there that how mental health is now a big thing. Right? Before it wasn't. Somebody had to get the ball,
Well,
moving, and human rights and things of that nature. It just takes one person, and you're that person.
thank you. And we're together in this. But the nice thing is, this is a bipartisan thing, which is why I love it, because I used to be involved a lot with politics. And the climate is just not for me anymore. People arguing over stuff that really, in the end of the day, health is the most important. And you probably get people are actually having heart attacks and stress from all the politics. But this bill like passed the House with over 400 and something votes. I think there were only 6 people who didn't vote for it, which I'm baffled about. And I actually thought about writing a letter to them, but I said it's pointless. But I don't know why you would not vote for a cure for Parkinson's. I don't think they either read it or they were of sane mind themselves. But that's why, again, I do love this advocacy field, because also the people in the Parkinson's community that they've opened their arms to me. They're like my family now, and some of the people I've met. We started a little podcast because I've never seen a podcast with people who have Parkinson's and a caregiver. Now we started one. It's called Unscripted. It's 3 of my close friends, Mark, Esther, Melissa, and myself, and we just get on. We just talk about life and Parkinson's and caregiving, and it's really fascinating. And they've just opened their arms to me. You would think, because I'm not, sometimes I told you I'm not with Parkinson's, and I'm not currently, so I feel like I'm on my own again, like almost restarting this whole thing. But as an advocate, you just have to make your own way, your own path, and you hope that you're not going to get everyone on board. I don't know why, but I'm pretty aggressive because I want to help people, and I find that the only journey that breaks my heart is the one that isn't people aren't aware of, and there's just so much to do and so little time. And there's just some organizations out there that I don't feel anyone knows about, and I just want to interview them so I can share it. And I literally want nothing in return. But even with that, sometimes it's not easy to get everybody to jump on, which is sad because, again, in the end of the day, I just want people, like, let's say your family might be in, you said Maryland, maybe there's probably like a Maryland Parkinson's. Well, if you went to togetherforsharon.com and you looked at the interviews or even just did a search for Maryland, it would have come up and boom, you just learned about it. But if they don't want to participate for free and I'm not charging them, then it's a shame because someone like your family might not even ever know they existed. And that's what
Right.
the toughest thing. You would think I'd have 100% response, but I'd say it's like 75, which is enough because this is another issue for a different time, but I'm burnt out. So, we talked earlier about being a caregiver and being burnt out, but we could have a whole show on being an advocate talking about burnout because there's days where I want to give up and I, want to see my family. I used to work out a lot, even now sitting here the hour, I'm probably not going to work out today. But to me, when I do go on social media and I see the other individuals, like I told you, my friends or anyone struggling, or one gentleman I know, his name's Michael, he's getting deep brain stimulation, it's DBS, where they literally have to go into your brain to help with the tremors. And that's fascinating and it works for many. But when I see them all struggling still, it makes me want to keep pushing. So there are nights I don't sleep over this because I just want to find a cure. But until there is a cure, I honestly I won't rest.
Yeah. You have a passion. You have a passion because you always say I don't have a place, but you do have a place. You have a place because you understand the troubles that people are going through, which is a special place because you have the most highest level of empathy because you've gone through it, you know what it is, and now you have a voice. You have a voice that you're trying to get out there to advocate, and you have done a great job in 4 years. And some people will they go through it and they're like, all right, that's over. Yeah, I'm grieving, but I don't have the energy. And so you have the energy, you have the tenacity, and that shows resilience. That shows the ability to push through despite what you're feeling. Now we're gonna have to talk about the little bit of self-care now. So because we don't want you to get sick and not be able to advocate. But I definitely think you're onto something. And even those 25% that don't buy in, they will eventually buy in. That's always what it is, right? The 25 they have to sit back and watch and wait. And sometimes it's late and sometimes they jump in right on time. So don't worry about those because you got me. Your story touched me and I told my mom about it. She's like, really? And I was like, yeah. I said this, God works in mysterious ways. And obviously this was important for me to have a conversation with you and know more about your organization, but also share with my audience, share with those that, like I said, not maybe not dealing with Parkinson's, but they are a caregiver in some way and they can advocate. They can use their story to shift some things, even if they feel uncertain. I feel like right now my life is very uncertain, but I'm taking it one day at a time. and navigating through this space. And so for you, how did I guess while you were going through, the caregiving process, how did you build a building a supportive network? You said you had your wife, you had your kids. Were there other people in your support network to help with caregiving, giving you time away, any of those things?
I mean, we tried even hiring, like, I forgot the name of it, but kind of a case manager on our own, which was expensive, just because I was handling like doctor's appointments, this and that, groceries. I was basically had to take care of my mother. So I had that, but it didn't last and it was very expensive. Then I hired, honestly, like three or four companies who would send, they call them caretakers, but they're really honest, like older babysitters. Because my goal was just that my mother didn't fall, but most of them
Right.
didn't even know what Parkinson's disease was. One of them took my mother out with her to her house to pick up something, like dragging my mother. So we fired everyone. So luckily, towards the end, we did find two incredible people, but it was, again, kind of late. And also, it's $12,000 a month. So a normal, reasonable person cannot afford that. And that's just for that. That wouldn't include, food and entertainment,
Mhm.
just living. We really try. My mother liked to be a human being, and Parkinson's kind of takes that from you. She lost a lot of weight. My wife was like heaven. She would bring over people, like women, things like, to do her hair and pedicures and manicures. Some days she was too sick, but anything we could do, we'd all go over and watch a movie. Anything we could do to kind of keep her from forgetting Parkinson's for a few moments. But then the late term dementia set in, so the delusions and hallucinations were at sometimes worse and more scary than the actual Parkinson's. I had to remove her phone because she called 911 once because she thought someone was harming her. I installed video cameras anywhere I could except for private places. That's where the male caregiver problem comes in, because I can't, give her showers and things. So I had to have people, but the people, again, I don't know if they gave the medicines at the right time, but to me, the only support really was my wife, and knowing, again, that I didn't want my mother to ever feel alone. She swore, and we swore we'd never put her in a home. And I have nothing against homes and things, but I can't see her at a home. So I don't know what's happening. I was worried they wouldn't be there for her. And but there were days I told my wife, I can't take it anymore. We have to put her in a home because I'm not equipped, whether it was mentally, physically, or any of that. I just was not equipped. Even today, I'm not, for Parkinson. But again, we pushed forward, and yeah, just like I almost quit my PhD 100 times because it was draining, and my mother was always next to me saying, "Don't give up." So whether it was law school graduation, my three master's degree graduation, the college, the police academy, I have pictures. My mother was right there by my side. So how could I not be there? When she needed me by her side.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned something which I think is very straining. You mentioned something and you brought it back in terms of the financial components of caregiving that a lot of people don't are not of, or depending on where they are in their life, can be a very big strain on the home or the family, the caregivers. Um, and I get it, like because my dad's Parkinson's medication is not covered by insurance. And so it's like, we're trying to get samples from the doctor, we're trying to do all these things. And they're like, well, why the insurance is not paying for it? Because they're not. Like, if they were, I would not be asking you. Like that rigidity from setting in and all this. So I feel like I had to justify everything just to keep my dad well. And so I think I talked to you about this. Like, we're in the process of relocating overseas because we just can't afford a caregiver, around the 12 hours a day to take care of him here because things are expensive. So we have to move closer to family and 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 be able to afford care and all of this. So we had to make some life changes just to be able to give him the best quality of life that we can and we can afford and not go bankrupt while trying to do it because that brings uncertainty, right? That brings discomfort. That impacts your mental health when you're not able to pay for all the medications and pay for all the supplies it takes to take care or, make sure that their body is healthy and spoiling and all the stuff that comes with that. Um, I think it's important to talk about that. A lot of people don't talk about the financial components of caregiving that impacts mental health. But if I feel like I can't pay my bills, I got to choose my light bill or my food bill over, his medication or caregiver. That's stressful. That's very stressful. And so for you to talk about that and say, yeah, like we had to do this and it costs, is I think it's validating.
Yeah, it was also sad. My mother, she, saved up her whole life, and unfortunately, everything went to Parkinson. So she didn't get to have like a final vacation, or we bought her a little home nearby, and we thought it had a man-made lake, and I always dreamt of her just sitting out there with the birds and relaxing for 10 years of her life after she's been through so many things in her life, and she didn't get a chance. After 1 year, she didn't even really get to enjoy it was a brand new, beautiful home, one floor, but completely she got to pick a lot of it out. I had to pick some because she was too sick, but it was like literally brand new. I have a picture of her face smiling the day we went in there, and she was so excited. I mean, she just got a brand new, beautiful house, and she really, again, never, because I was like literally the last year, every day was just decline in health, and I don't think she really ever got to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad. It's sad because my dad was a workaholic. He worked all his life. I'm a first generation American born. My parents came here with nothing and built a life, and this is how his life is. The last leg of his life is spending it being sick and bedridden. It's sad. It's sad to really think about it, and you begin the grieving process before the person passes away because you see the decline, you see the shift, and that impacts your mental well-being, and really having to embrace the change, embracing what's in front of you. I tell people all the time, like, I've embraced that my dad's not going to be here very long. Like, that's just part of it. And I think people think I'm crazy for saying that, but I'm like, I can avoid it or, ignore it, or I can embrace it and say, I really have to spend these days with him, spend these months, whatever he has, as best as I can, give him the best quality of life, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, and I think in that brings uncertainty, but it also helps you to thrive, to accept, and do your best, right? Really do your best, have compassion, love on yourself, as you said your wife was there to be supportive. Get some people, if your family or my mom is my support, through this process, and just really come together and don't allow it to divide you, even when you feel like quitting. So if you had to give a message to my listeners about navigating this uncertainty, navigating this place of change and shifting with a family member that you may be a caregiver for whatever disease they may be going through, what would that be for them?
I would say support your loved one. Forget about the past. If you had a kind of a lame argument, just forget it. It's time to move on. If they were there for you, it's time to step up and be there for them. The one regret I do have, but she was too sick the last year, is I have a podcast too. It's really dealing more with Parkinson's and things, but I wish I had gone back 10 years and did a podcast with her, and not even about Parkinson's, just about life. And like I could have it's almost like right now we're talking, this will be
Mm,
documented literally forever, wherever your website goes, even your future family can continue it on. I'm hoping my website and everything dies out because we find a cure. So we have different goals. Like in life, I just want it to end. I'll keep it up there, but I don't want to have to give it to I often look at my daughter who's now 11, and my mother loved my daughter because it was her first little girl. She always wanted a girl. She had two boys, but she wanted a girl to give dolls and dress up like a doll. So my daughter Brooke and her were really close. But I even have a video. It's horrifying. Like the night we came back from the funeral, it's even tough to talk about. I have a video of my daughter hugging my wife, just crying, like in shock. And I was a 6 year old at the time. But anyway, so my biggest message is, again, I usually say this at the end of any of my podcasts, is we love you, we support you, and this is for your family too. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate for you along with Janine, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started because, like I said, every morning I wake up and I see a new journey on the website, that interview I did. I've done a lot, so I can't remember them all, but it's cool because when I wake up and look, it's like there's a new one and it brings me back. And it just energizes me to get back out there and to keep fighting.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've enjoyed talking to you and really sharing the message together for Sharon. And we're going to get, join in. I'm going to do the things that we talked about and make sure that we stay connected and share my story with my dad as he's overseas. So we're going to transition back over there and be with him and spend these days with him and make sure that his message get out because my dad, I didn't mention this before. My dad is a preacher. He loved the Lord. His message was always to help others. And so if we can use his story to help others, whatever that may look like, I'm all for it. So again, thank you so much, Dr. George, for being here, for sharing your time and your knowledge. Those that are listening, make sure that you follow him. What is your Instagram? What is your Facebook? Like, what is all your tags that they can follow?
I don't know why I'm on all these things. I only thought I'd be on one. Somehow it's just kind of viral. But if you go to togetherforsharon.com and scroll down a little, you'll see all 7 or whatever, every single one there is. Twitter. I swear I'd never be on TikTok, but I'm on it. And I try to just share a message every day. And some days I post too much, but it's like, again, I just want the message to be out there. And again, the cool thing again is that I literally want nothing in return except a cure for Parkinson. So if you are on our journey and you want to jump in with us, please reach out to your senators to support the national plan to end Parkinson. On the website, there's just a lot of some fun things, some tough things. See a picture of my visit with Mr. Michael J. Fox recently. Also, my mother loved Broadway, and when I was a kid, she brought me to Broadway shows like Cats. So, and I played
Mm-hmm.
guitar for 20 years, and she was very sick the last week of her life. But we tried music therapy, and some reason we decided to play her favorite song was "Memory" from Cats, and it was the
Okay.
same play that she brought me from Brooklyn to Manhattan to see when I was a kid, and I got to play that on guitar with the music therapist. And that was the last time my mother was able to speak. It was a week still till she passed, but at the very end, she said thank you, and she loved it. And those were the last words she ever said. And that was like, so luckily we have a video. She's not in the video, but it's
Mhm.
just was a great moment. But those are the kind of things you'll find on the website. But finally, there's a lot of light and hope in the darkness. So what happened to us does not mean it's going to happen to others. And I still think we are in a very important time right now to pass that bill and to find awareness throughout the world and to end Parkinson's disease forever. And I just again want to thank you and your audience for the time. And again, this conversation has to continue on. And I'll be sharing this podcast too on my website forever and around the world. But I think, again, this is a great start. And I send my love again to everybody out there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And remember, listeners, if you want to find out more about Dr. George and the work that he's doing, make sure that you check out his website Together for Sharon and follow him on all social media platforms. And remember to follow our podcast where all podcasts are streamed. Check out my blog at gettingrooted.com for more information on this topic and other topics, and follow us on Facebook and IG as well as on TikTok. And until next time, remember, stay rooted. Remember to reclaim one's own truth and embracing destiny. Be well.